yes from Eva. Guys, do make sure you're set to all panelists and attendees so everyone can see your replies, okay? Some yeses, some no. I know you two, Carl and Sam, I know you guys use TrueCoach.
What's TrueCoach?
Yes.
So guys, we're right on 10 a.m. here, Arizona time. So we will get started, and then as people filter in, we'll just make sure that they're set to all panelists and attendees. So guys, I guess just to start off, it would be really cool to hear a little bit from Sam. He is VP of Brand at TrueCoach. And Sam, I'm sure you've seen a big influx of coaches that are trying to go remote right now and adapting to the situation and the environment that they're faced with. Could you just give me a little bit of a background and give all the listeners a little bit of a background on what TrueCoach does, and then basically what you're seeing?
Yeah, so guys, for those of you who are new, TrueCoach is a software or a platform for you to deliver individualized design programs digitally. With that being said, you could very much use it in a number of other ways, but that primary way we look at it is being able to work with remote clients and provide not a cookie cutter program where it's just like go do these squats, but be able to give the client that one-on-one experience that a lot of us really want to give to our clients, and to where they feel like the experience that client's getting whatever states away is just as valuable as if you're sitting there right there with them, because the platform allows you to communicate as if you're human beings. It's not robotic. It's not just sets and reps. Like, there is the ability to coach people dynamically, and that's what TrueCoach really does.
Thanks for that background, Sam. And I guess the reason that OPEX Fitness, which is where myself and Carl are from, and Sam and TrueCoach have such a strong relationship, is that we teach coaches how to design individual programs. And then TrueCoach really is the best platform to be able to deliver that. So we've had a really strong relationship over the years, us on the education front, and then TrueCoach with the ability to put that education into practice and, have a really clear way for coaches to be able to use it with their clients. So Sam, just some general comments on what you guys are seeing right now with all this craziness.
Yeah, I think a lot of the big scary thing that we're seeing a lot of people experiencing is the people who were aware of online coaching and maybe knew that it was a place that they were going to go eventually, and this just forced their hand, right? And not only did it force their hand in terms of online, but they needed to move all their current in-person clients to the online setting as well, right? And I think that's the biggest group that we're seeing a lot of, to where, and then I think that the hybrid coach is who we see the most of anyway, overall. But it's because now you have two different dynamics, right? Like, you're thinking about the future, you're thinking about what's going on. And the biggest thing I want every coach to walk away with is, first, take a breath. First and foremost, address the clients that you have right now, right? Make sure that they go, if they're in-person clients, make sure that you're building a clear communication channel of dialogue, expectations, and working with them as you transition those people to a digital experience. And with that being said, this is the time where you can bank on that relationship, to where all those handshakes and hugs have really paid off, to where they know you're going through something brand new. They know you just went from an in-person gym and holy crap, you had to move online quickly, and there's going to be bumps in the road. And I would just heavily encourage every coach that over communicating is going to be your best friend every step of the way, and just make sure that you're consistently helping the people that you already work with. Now, in terms of the next stage that we start seeing people get really scared is, okay, it's one thing that I moved the people over online, but now we're starting to get worried of, how long is this going to go? What's next? Does it look poor form for me to start trying to market and try to drive business, because I just lost 40% of my business because 40% of my clients don't have income either. And so they stopped training. And so now we get coaches who are really looking at, like, what do I do? Right? Like, if we all lost 50% of our income and didn't know what the future led, it's a scary time. And so I think that's where we're really looking at is, first, I want to say, coaches, if you're transitioning people, take a breath, worry about the people that already are staying with you. They're already current lovable customers that support you. Get them over and build a system that works for your business and your communication style. Next, then we got to start looking at, okay, where are we at? What's kind of happening? And where do I need to start looking at building out this new stream of business? Because I think the biggest thing I want people to understand too is that, like, hey, this is online coaching is a business entity. It's its own stream of business. So now that we're looking at, if we're going to start talking about adding clients, we're now in that realm of like, okay, this is the marketing side. So I want people to distinguish those two. Take care of the people you have, and then we can start looking at what's the future of everything going forward. Hi, Jim.
So
Welcome.
Hey, Jim. So Sam, I do want to dig in a little bit to the communication piece that you just brought up, because I think that is so important, and it's so different to communicate and create relationships in person versus do it with people online. Could you maybe share how you are seeing the best coaches create strong relationships digitally and how they're easing that process from in-person to online for their clients?
Well, I think, for those of you who haven't been around the OPEX crew as long, or maybe are now early experiencing, I think this is what you guys do exceptionally well, more than a lot of people in the market. And that's building a really great, consistent, and purposeful communication strategy when you're building individualized design. Right. And so it looks at, it starts off with everything that we do. And I think that's why you guys are such a great model right now, is it takes everything step by step. If you went through a great assessment with your client and you've been communicating with them over everything from lifestyle to their training to their nutrition, and it's cyclical in terms of you're consistent with every time, Carl and I chat, it's Monday mornings at 9 a.m. because I want to see him bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And, that client gets consistent with not only that call, but then the feedback in TrueCoach. And where TrueCoach really allows you guys to do what you do well is that it's an open-ended platform. We don't have to talk about sets and reps. We can talk about like, hey, how'd you sleep last night? Hey, how did you crush all your quarantine snacks, or did you not crush them all? Like, how did we do there? And so the ability to communicate with your client, you have the opportunity now to set up consistent communication channels with those clients to where it's okay. Every day they got to give you feedback. Did I get enough sleep last night? Did I do my movement? Did I get some push-ups in? Like, did we get those little things? And then did they go on their walk? Did they get 5 minutes of sunshine? Right? So we're able to build that into where that client has to hit those compliance numbers, and they're consistently giving you that feedback. Hey, I did that. Hey, I did that. And so we forget that when we're online, we don't have those touch points that we do when we're in person, the reading expressions and checking in. Hey, how you doing? Right? When you coach in person, you can tell if that client's like, ooh, they might be having a tough day, right? But online, that person might be going through some heck and you don't know that. And so then you give them a workout and they just want to smash because that's what they think they need. But if you haven't been getting consistent feedback, right, then you don't know. So when I talk about really good communication, it's building a system around it. And are you being consistent to it? To where, hey, Georgia, we're going to have our one-on-one consult just to make sure we're on the same page, because this is a new experience. Every Wednesday at 9 a.m., that's typically the time we train in the mornings. Does that work with you? And obviously we got to set the time. And that way now Georgia and I have a consistent time to now communicate. And so that way they still feel supported, because that client's going through a full new lifestyle change overall. So you can be really supportive during this time. And then the same thing goes inside of TrueCoach when you're setting up the way you want your information given, right? We can't expect our clients to be inside of our brains and think like, oh yeah, they're gonna want me to say every vegetable I ate yesterday and how much sleep I got and what's going on at home. Like, those are the things that you as a coach, that's your nice little touch that you're putting on everything. That's like, oh, okay, like now that client really is giving you the information they need. And so, make that to your style, make that to what your business looks like, but be consistent with that communication and make sure that that client knows that you are there to support them. And then whether there's bumps along the way between the transitioning online or even you starting something up brand new on the fly, people will be forgiving over you being a human and making those mistakes, but they will remember how great of a communicator and how much you cared.
Looks like Jim might have something to add there.
Yeah, quick two-parter for you, Sam. The folks who have not been into TrueCoach prior, first question is, what are the biggest challenges that they've found so far, and maybe how can they overcome them. And then the second part is, you know, a bunch of people on this call are in CCP right now. I'm curious, you know, maybe what some of the tools within the platform could be to make them more efficient, or some of the things that you would recommend that they do to become more efficient now. Because I know a lot of coaches, they're going from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour online, and scheduling's hard, or blah, blah, you know, what are some of the tools they might be able to work with?
Yeah, I personally think this is where programs is going to come in really, really handy for a lot of you, especially if we know that a lot of people are going to be at home, right? We can kind of set up a quicker template to where we're not reinventing the wheel every single time. And so programs are great to where I can kind of set up a skeleton, or I can set up a really in-depth upper lower if we were in a gym setting, and to where every client that I'm getting ready to get going, I can kind of drop that skeleton in, and now it's kind of a plug and play system. So it takes way less brain power per person every single time you're programming for someone, especially now given that we're probably doing a lot of body weight stuff, right? And so now the beauty in the programming isn't necessarily in like how many sets and reps did you get, it's how well is that person being consistent with movement and doing the small things that they should be doing, right? So it really comes into play to where I think that your effort, instead of spending that time worrying about a really excellent program, not that a bodyweight program is not going to do it, it's just you have less variables, to where you're going to put more into that communication. And so using something like programs to where you can drag and drop and really plug stuff in is going to be a huge time saver. You know, with the people I train, one of the guys I train trains out of his garage, and he only has like 2 kettlebells and a medicine ball and a mace. And so it's so nice for me just to like, oh, I just put exactly what equipment he has, and I can take that sidebar, and as I'm writing his workouts out, right, I already know what equipment he has right there. I don't have to like, oh, does he have 2 kettlebells or 1 kettlebell? So if you have clients who do have home gym setups, or, you know, accumulated stuff along the way, get them to tell you exactly what they have, and then put it in your TrueCoach notes in their profile. So that way, because you're not going to remember if Carl's got 4 kettlebells and Georgia's got 16 because she's way stronger than Carl is, right? Like, you just won't remember those things, right? And so having that right there is just a huge time saver. And one of the things we got to look at with coaching, especially when we move online, especially when we now have an urgency where, you, like Jim says, we went from 0 to 1,000, that we are being attentive to our time. We can't spend 16 hours on one person's program because we think that that's going to really do the thing. We got to be quick, and we got to make sure that everybody's getting in touch until we have our own systems up. So use the software to work for you. Use programs. Yeah, it doesn't mean that you're giving people a cookie cutter program, but let's be honest, like if you're setting someone up to be a Monday, Wednesday, Friday heavy stress workout day, well, then you can like kind of prioritize that in TrueCoach, and you can set your templates up to where it's now like, okay, I ask them about their sleep, and I ask them about their rest, and I ask them about their things. And so every single new client, that just gets dropped into the skeleton. And now it's like, okay, here we go. I can just now fill in exercises. And I think that's what you're going to learn through OPEX and CCP that you guys do exceptionally well.
How about those folks that just haven't been in the platform before? I know you guys are working hard to try and get people up and running, but what are some of maybe like a couple of big bullet points that you would recommend for folks that are going from 0 to 20 or 0 to 60 clients overnight?
Yeah, bucket them, right? Like set your clients up. You definitely are going to have people in different buckets, to where you might have 20 fat loss, weight loss clients. You might have some return to play clients, and you might have some performance clients. And I would get those bucketed to where it's like, okay, let me at least see how many I have where, and where is my effort going to go, right? Like, okay, if you know your return to play clients are going to take up the majority of your time, right? At least now you know how much work is ahead of you, so you can get the other things done. Is if you're going from 0 to 60 quickly, definitely assess where you're at and where those people are at. And I would say, you know, right now, a lot of people are going from 0 to go. So quickly, have you communicated with your people, and what can you give them now to make sure that they feel supported? And then you can go build out things that are nicer. Don't try to give them the dream online training business today, because you need to get something up and going and provide value. Then you can start refining, like, okay, here are my pain points. Now you can start itemizing where things are at. Did that answer that for you? Or did I go too far off?
No. I think it makes sense. I suspect, based on a lot of conversations, coaches are feeling a bit overwhelmed in a lot of different stress buckets right now. And so the more efficient they can be, the better, I think.
Totally. And
Yeah.
James, great point. Yeah, exactly. Creating personalized online fitness isn't going to happen overnight, right? Like, so the best part we can do is really just communicate and connect, right? I think a lot of us are experiencing this right now, even in our own homes, to where if you're left with a jar of peanut butter within arm's reach of your computer all day, well, I'm probably going to eat. And I bought extra peanut butter, to quarantine myself. And well, now I'm on a weight gain program. So even coaches are going through that same experience, or whatever your vice is. Mine was dried mangoes. But yeah, we're not building business overnight. We need to set up systems. And that's why I want to stress people to communicate well first, right? Take care of your current people first, then we can worry about what your online business is going to be, right? But that's not going to be built by the time this thing is done, but we do want to help you kind of get started.
Yep.
To really get into the nitty-gritty of communication on TrueCoach, Sam, could you hit on the main places that you believe or a coach should be communicating with their client, and maybe best practices that you've seen around how many times, how often, how quickly, things like that?
Yeah, I think this is a really good, we have TrueCoach Connect, which is the coach's communication app. And so it acts almost like, think Facebook Messenger. And so it allows you to directly connect to Georgia all the time. And so that way, maybe you can also have some personalized distancing where it's not your cell phone getting blown up. At the same time, if a client is referring to a workout where if Georgia writes in the program on TrueCoach and she says, why did I do 1,000 burpees today? And that way that question is right underneath those 1,000 burpees in the workout in that app, as opposed to I'm just getting a text and it's like, well, because I love you would be the answer, right? If I was just getting a text from her in that regards. But now I have, it's because we're building up your burpee capacity for the CrossFit Games, and I can be specific to that workout in that specific area. It's really nice, guys, as much as it's nice to communicate with your clients in every way and be accessible. The nice thing with Connect is being able to have all your client data in one spot. So where that way, if that client asks you a question randomly ad hoc one day, you're not surfing through your text messages, your emails, and your app. You can just if you condition your clients and you ask them up front to, hey, make sure all of our training content, training related information is in this within TrueCoach. It allows you all of your information to be in one spot. And, as much as I'd like to think that Jim's one of the smartest humans I know, he doesn't remember everything. And so it's going to be nice for him to be able to oh yeah, okay, that's where that conversation was, or, they have done that before, or we have talked about that. So yeah, being able to use TrueCoach Connect is a great way to be able to have all your conversations in one spot and then not get overloaded with too many different forms of communication. I'm probably a above average high frequency communicator, and it gets overwhelming for me with how many platforms are out there right now. So I can only imagine for someone who doesn't like social interaction as much as I do to be communicating from so many different spots. You guys are the best note takers ever. Just the OPEX team in general. Every time I see something from you guys, it's always so nice and summarized, and it's bullet pointed. And I'm like, God, you guys are so good. I just like working with you.
So Carl did put some great points just there in the chat box, and maybe Carl, you'd like to speak to them and expand on them a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Sam hit the nail on the head, as he talked through that last piece. And, I think it all comes back to, the coaches that are on this call that are, inputting 10, 20 clients into TrueCoach today. Before you input those clients, just be proactive, right? All being proactive means is having a process, right? So instead of being reactive and, oh man, now I have 10 clients in TrueCoach, what am I going to do? Take a second and create your process before you get there. And the webinar that Sam and I did a few months back, George, I don't know if you can maybe send that to the attendees later or something like that, but we went through all of those pieces on being proactive and having a process. And, just some quick pieces. It's like, how do I intake every single one of my clients? Because we should do that the exact same way, because you are recreating the wheel if I intake Jim differently than I intake Georgia, right? So have a process there. How do I consult with my clients? Am I doing it on Zoom? How are they scheduling those consultations? We shouldn't be in TrueCoach sending messages saying, hey, can we do a consult today, right? That's being extremely reactive. So have a process of getting there. How do you assess your clients? How do you program when do you program for each one of your clients? If you have 60 clients, it's not a great idea to program for 60 clients on Monday, right? So how are you splitting those up? And Sam hit a great point on bucketing those clients. So think about that and have a process there. When do you communicate with your clients, and how do you communicate with your clients? Is it TrueCoach only, right? There's no right or wrong answers. All I'm getting back to is just have a really clear process that your clients are a part of. And then on the equipment piece, it's like we have to put some onus on our clients as well inside of our process, i.e., none of us have gyms anymore. Are we sending TrueCoach broadcasts? Maybe shoot a video out to all of our clients and let them know, hey, this is how the process changed today, because now we don't have access to gyms and now you guys are all at home. I want you to go inside of your equipment tab and I want you to update what you have at home, right? Like we can't put all of the onus on us. So just having a really clear and clean process just makes this thing so much, not easier, but more seamless.
While we're on this topic really quick, can we just, Carl, can we just maybe touch on it just because they're going to look on it on the webinar real quick, but can you just kind of discuss how you maybe structure your notes and the way you get feedback from your clients in the app using the workout builder? Because I think you do it so beautifully. And I think it'd be a great way for coaches to like, oh, because I'm very much, you can't ask me to build a system around something I haven't built before, and to see someone who does it really well. Like, how do you do that? And how do you make sure your clients are giving you the information you need? So when you do go game time, we got to talk, all the information you've needed over the last week or 2 weeks is there for them.
Yeah, definitely. So, for those that are on the call that are inside of CCP, just go into the membership site right now, pull up the coach notes, and you'll see in the appendix, we have it laid out. These are the points that we want to hit on in every single monthly consultation. Copy those, paste them into your TrueCoach notes under your client's profile, and put, what month are we in right now? March. Put March consultation, and all you're doing is you're answering those questions as you go down, right? So that should be a part of your process. When you're intaking clients and doing an initial consultation, then do the exact same thing, but with your initial consultation questions. So what we hit on in every single consultation is exercise, behavior, and nutrition every single time, right? And that's very important and vital in the initial consultation and when we're intaking clients, because we have to understand where they're at today, what their experiences are, so on and so forth, to give them a really good program. So yeah, on the process side, Sam, on the note taking, take notes the same way every time, right? And although that is a template and a monthly consultation, maybe you spend 30 minutes or 60 minutes, however long your monthly consults are, with your client, and all you're talking about is behavior, right? Right now, we're probably not talking about exercise for 30 minutes with our clients on monthly consultations. We're not talking about air squats and push-ups for 30 minutes, most likely. So maybe the program design or the exercise piece of this thing doesn't necessarily take a back seat, but other pieces start to become a little bit more important. So yeah, have some structure, but be moldable to what your client needs from you.
Yep. Real quick, Jamie Fuller. Yes, there are. Our team has some pre-recorded webinars, and they do live Q&A webinars throughout the week. So Rachel just sent a link to the webinar to sign up for it, and then that can get you access to asking questions to our awesome team and getting watchable real-time demos.
So guys, one thing I'd love all of you to hit on is how to actually communicate exercises inside of TrueCoach, because especially for clients that are used to being in the gym with you, seeing the movement demonstrated, having all the key points described to them, how do you make sure they know how to perform that back squat that they have as for their program design?
Yeah, I'll jump in first if you guys don't mind. Yeah, I kind of smiled as you asked that question, Georgia, because it's there's no answer, right? It's like, we have to understand who our clients are and what their capabilities are, right? So if I'm coaching Sam and I give him air squats, I'm probably not going to put any notes there because I know Sam knows how to perform an air squat to perfection, right? If I'm coaching Sam and I say, I'm just going to throw a random exercise out there, Sam, sorry if I'm wrong. If I'm giving Sam pistols, right, and we're doing, weighted goblet pistols and we're focusing on something particular, maybe I'm asking Sam, hey man, maybe shoot me a video from a 45-degree angle because I want to look at this. But it all goes back to understanding your clients and knowing what their capabilities are and understanding what they're, let's call it, good at, or what they've mastered and what they haven't, right? Because if I'm giving someone a dumbbell bench press and I've worked with them for 6 years, I'm not going to ask for a video of their dumbbell bench press, if that makes sense, right? So don't overwhelm our clients and ask them for a video on A1, A2, you know what I mean? Like, we're probably giving them the wrong program if we have to see a video on every single movement that they do inside of their design. So there just has to be a really good reason to want to see a video from your clients. And if we want to see a video for everything, think about what you're giving them, and maybe you're just giving them the wrong program.
Really appreciate that answer, Carl. And we do have James on the call as well, and he popped some great points in the chat box. James, would you mind just popping on and giving us a little bit of clarification on what you're talking about in the chat box there?
Yeah, I think it's just pertinent to the time. You know, we're talking about a short time frame here, where I would assume people that are listening in are here on the call because they need help, and they need help in the short term. So what you don't want to create in that short term is anything that's going to get in the way of creating consistency. And that is generally a coach over-prescribing with good intentions, but they're just going in the wrong direction for that. So, you know, make whatever you think is simple, make it simpler. And if you're going to write it down, and as you're writing it, you're like, I'm not sure if they're going to know how to do this, don't fucking write it. That's the simple answer to it inside of your coach's head. So, and if you're afraid that they're not going to be impressed by what you don't and don't write, remember the overarching theme here is consistency of movement and experience. And I think getting outside of that, you know, if you were to speak to me in another room 6 months ago, I would A1 to D2 that shit for an hour, right? To give you exactly how it's done, but it's not important right now. So that's what I mean by least drag, keep people consistent. And then it allows you to also have time for creating a why on the whole thing, I think. You know.
Yeah, that's a great point, James. And I think it was Thursday or Friday, Georgia, where we talked about setting up your clients for success. And I think this is a great opportunity and a great time to do that, just because there's so many variables and so many moving pieces right now. If we're doing the, you know, what James called A1 to D2, and that everything inside of that is so complex, and we're like uncertain if the client's going to be able to execute that to perfection, right? Like, they may get to C1 and they're like, fuck this, like, I'm frustrated. I have a million other things going on, and my exercise is just adding to my stress. It's like, let's just give people stuff that they can perform walking out of bed, right? It's like, get out of bed and do this. You know what I mean? Because that's what a lot of people are doing right now. They're like, hey, I need to go, you know, downstairs or in the garage or in the backyard and hit a training session before my kids wake up today, right? It's like, we don't need an A1 to D2 and, you know, activating every muscle in the body to do that. So I think right now is a great time for us as coaches to really focus on simplicity and prescribing very simple things.
I think it's a good opportunity for us to look at how we have been coaching or the experience that we have been providing our clients. Because now we're in a setting to where if you've been a heavy in-person experience coach and you've been, you know, a lot of tactile cueing, a lot of RNT methods to help provide feedback in different ways, and now that client is at home and they don't have those tools, or they don't hear patterns, they just hear exercises. And so now you're trying to like, hey, just choose a squat pattern with a certain element, whatever that is, and they don't know it, right? So I think now we're seeing, because the communication has changed so much from maybe an in-person to an online experience, to where it really has become like, hey, when you're teaching exercise, what are the elements that you need to get across, but like it's consistent with how you typically coach, and that doesn't overwhelm them, right? Like, you can't write a 20-page paragraph about how to do you know, a back squat, right, in the thing, because it's going to be overwhelming, right? And so it turns into like, hey, do you have things that they can learn quickly and they can self-govern, and then they understand what they are doing as well? And we're seeing that as coaches, we got to learn those things and make sure that our clients are empowered with that information as well.
Guys, I think that's such a powerful way to wrap up the conversation for today. And we will get into some Q&A in just a couple minutes. Sam, anyone else that's on the call, I will ask if you have anything else, any words of wisdom to contribute for coaches that are making the jump to going remote, anything you'd like to leave them with?
One thing I really enjoy, guys, is I know it's a scary time. I know the urgency feel is going to make you want to do everything as fast as possible. And I encourage you, wherever you are at in your business, in your life, take a step back, take a big deep breath, and set aside a few minutes to plan time to plan, right? What's going on? Where am I at? What do I need to get done first before you start worrying about all the big picture things, all the things that you know inevitably need to get done? Start off, take that breath first. It'll all happen. It's not going away. People aren't going to magically come out of this quarantine experience with six packs and in great shape. The industry of people who wanting to get better with their health and fitness is still going to be there. So make sure you plan time to plan. What do you need to knock out first to make the money you need to survive? And then you can worry about the next steps going forward from there. So take that breath, plan time to plan.
Thanks, Sam. Jim, anything you have to add on the business side of remote coaching?
Yeah, to try to stay simple, I'll take what Sam just said in terms of planning to plan, but you need to know that, particularly in the short run, I think it's going to be like a 3-stage process where right now you're going to feel like you're running 24/7 because you're trying to transition a business online. And I'm just assuming most people are at least in some capacity in that boat. You have to understand that and be okay with that right now, because you have to do the work to get people onto a platform and them feeling consistent. I suspect that once you start programming, yes, you'll feel a bit overwhelmed at some points, but it'll start to calm down a lot. That's when you're going to have to work communication hard, because people are going to also be like, this novelty thing is wearing off. Now I'm curious if this is something I actually want to do. That's a very dangerous time if you don't stay really communicative with your clients. And then stage 3 is when we start to come out of, I don't know, the virus lockdown times. I don't think it's just going to be immediate. So I think you need to think through, how am I going to come out of this systematically? Because we might come out of shelter in place, but maybe the gyms won't open right away, or maybe you're only allowed to do certain hours. So some people might come out of it and some people might not. And so you need to remember kind of what bucket am I in and what can I most effectively do based on that bucket.
Thanks, Jim. So guys, we are starting to get some questions in the chat box now, and please go ahead and type them in there as they come to your mind, guys. We have one from Jordan on how do you recommend you go about pricing? How do you justify it, etc. Jordan, maybe you could pop and let us know, are you talking about pricing for like one-on-one clients? Give us a little bit more detail about what your business is.
Also, are you talking about current clients or trying to acquire new clients into this remote thing?
Do both. That's a mastery in 3 minutes if you can. Ready? Go.
So we'll give Jordan some time. Guys on the panel, any big, problems or mistakes that you see coaches make when they do transition to remote coaching?
Oh man, I'll hit one really quick. Carl came in hot too, so I think he's got a few things. The biggest thing that I'm seeing is them treating the service exactly the same as something like group training, which it's not. You have to know that it's not group training, which means you have to overly communicate with your clients because they didn't initially sign up for it. So I'm all for doing some Zoom calls and making it interesting where you can, but you got to know that the service is different, and certain coaches are not treating it differently. They're going to get smoked in 7 to 21 days when their clients are like, I don't want this. Sorry, Carl.
No worries. Yeah, I was just going to add, the landscape has changed, right? Like 5 years ago, 10 years ago, for some people, when remote coaching was what it used to be, the program was so important, and that was probably the most important thing, right? So 10 years ago, you could write an outstanding program, your clients would do it, there would be minimal communication, you would have a consultation, and that was it, because they were getting an outstanding program. And obviously I'm talking more on the fitness for sport side, where competitors just wanted to get better and they needed a great program to get them better. But in this landscape, we can't take, and by this landscape, I mean, because I see a bunch of people in the chat box who are like, I need to convert in person to remote. I would imagine that most of those people that you're converting from in-person to remote aren't high level competitors. They're probably just, general population people that are coming into your gym that just wanted to, build a really good relationship with you and get fitter. So if we take the approach where the program is number one and we don't give a shit about like the communication and the relationship building and all of that, we're going to lose in this thing, right? Because most people actually don't care about the program, or they don't know what a good program is. I think that's all of our shit in our head, trying to write really nuanced things for every single person that we coach. So going back to just giving your remote clients exactly what they need. Some of your remote clients, they may just need a really good program, and they're going to tell you that, and they're going to say, hey, I don't want to jump on a consultation and talk to you. Give me a really good program. But most of them are going to want to build a really good relationship, build good habits, and exercise. Right. So just consider the landscape and where we're at today, especially if we're converting from in-person to remote. And just to end on the last thing that Jim said is the service is different. Remote is different than in-person. We have OPEX gyms around the world. Those are in-person models. And we obviously believe that in-person overall is just better, right? It's just better to be able to touch someone and give them a high five and fix their squat and all of those things. But right now we don't have that choice, right? So the only choice that we have right now is everyone has to be a good fit for remote coaching.
Yep.
I will quickly add to that as well. Those OPEX gyms do still use TrueCoach for their clients that are coming in person. So when the dust settles and all this craziness is over, this will continue to be a massive value add for the clients that you have coming into workout every day. They'll be able to take their workout when they go on vacation and still be able to do it there. They'll have some self-responsibility and, be able to look at the program for the day and know what's up and not just rely on you to tell them what to do. So it absolutely is a service that you guys will continue to use beyond just this period in time where you may be forced to be remote, even if you don't want to be. Now, Jordan had clarified his question before. He is transitioning from one-on-one to taking his clients remote and is wondering about price structure for that.
I'm happy to jump in initially, or Sam, go ahead, Sam.
Sorry. I just wanted to add, this is a really good time for coaches to evaluate what it is, what service you offer. What is it that you're really offering people? And to look at like, how is it that you help people? Like as Carl just touched on, it's not about the back squat. They might come in looking at like, I want to get a 3RM back squat up by 50 pounds by next quarter, whatever. But like, it's really the personal discipline. There's a lot of elements that go into it. So look at the business that your training business and what is it that you've really been offering your clients? And so when you go to make the value proposition to go online, a lot of people probably are realizing that people are going to want to work out. And so the in-person experience, they just like hanging out, right? Like it's a cool, an hour to work out and learn something and it was cool. But when you move online, there's got to be a clear value. Like, oh, why would I sign up with Carl to help, guide my fitness instead of Jim or James or Georgia? They're all coaches. They're all qualified coaches. But what is it about Carl that I feel is really resonating with me? And maybe it's because Carl's message is targeting guys who think they're strong and crushing their egos and making sure they feel that they're not strong, right? And that might be the program that Carl offers, and that's why I really attach to him. But I think this is a really good time. Hey, what is it that you really offer people? What do you help people do? And as you look at transitioning people to online, that becomes very clear. Because Carl and I might like working out with Carl in person in the gym because we get along and we talk about cars and baseball. But then online, like, well, I mean, workouts are cool, but like, I don't want to keep going with this because we're not in the gym, right? So evaluate, what makes your coaching business unique and why do people want to work with you specifically?
On the pricing piece, guys, if you guys remember the movie Old School, when Will Ferrell does the debate and blacks out, I'm going to attempt to do a 60-minute conversation on pricing in about 60 to 90 seconds. So bear with me as I crumble over my words. I think in this moment, you want to keep your pricing as the same as possible. Meaning if you're charging them $121 right now, charge them $121 tomorrow. The biggest reason I say that is because each thing that changes for your client results in them recognizing the change and worrying about the change, even if it's somehow a lower price. Okay, so in this moment, I think if you can make a quality transition onto a remote platform like TrueCoach, don't even try to change the price, because you're providing them the service approximately that they wanted in the past. Now, you have to make sure that you are making enough money for what you need. Okay, so let's say that you're doing a boot camp and people are paying you $40 a month and you're attempting to put them online. I completely understand wanting $40 versus zero. I get that. But you have to know that that could probably only last for about 8 weeks, because $40 to write a full program, do communication, it's not going to work, because typically speaking, a brand new coach needs 3 or more hours per client per month. So you start to break that down, it starts looking like sub $10, an hour. It's okay for right now because cash is cash, but be careful and position your pricing. If you're very low, position your pricing to be like 2 months only, and then it goes to normal. So I like keeping pricing as consistent as possible. If you have the flip side where your clients are paying you a significantly high dollar amount for, let's call it personal training, I do think that you can come down, but I would veer higher because they're so used to a higher price point that you can talk about a transactional utility issue, i.e. they'll feel great that they're paying less, but they still have direct connection to their coach. And I'm assuming that you're not doing 60-minute sessions with them through Zoom. I'm assuming you're doing a normal monthly remote coaching business.
Thanks for that, Jim. So guys, if there's any more questions, we can stay on a couple more minutes. So please feel free to pop them in the chat box. Nothing coming up yet. So anything else, the team here, that you'd like the guys to consider when they go away and they sit down and they write those TrueCoach programs today?
Yeah, just I think James brought up a good point above in the chat box on sustainability for the coach. That's a great point. And whatever you're setting up right now, whatever process you're thinking of implementing, and how you think this may be an additional source of revenue if it's different from what you're doing today. Look at the sustainability of it. Is this something that you see yourself doing? And I'll go even shorter than 20. James proposed 20. Is this something you see yourself doing in 3 to 5 years? Right? Because if it's not, right, like we all have to shift right now, but this is not going to last forever, right? So we all have to shift right now, but get it embedded into your head what you want this to be when this whole thing is over and we're back into gyms and you're coaching your clients one-on-one, whatever that is. Or B, is this something that you think that you're going to continue to do for the next 3, 5, eventually 20 years, right? And it's the same conversation that you would have with a client when talking about their nutrition, let's say, right? Like before you prescribe a client something in nutrition, you have to ask them, is this something that you're comfortable doing? Is this something that you see them doing in a year, 2 years, 5 years? Because if it's not, don't put the time into it now, right? Because you're just going to be spinning your wheels, because you're going to change that prescription in a month because they're not going to be able to do it. So remote coaching is different, right? I'm not saying it's better or worse globally, like everyone has their own thoughts on it, but it is different. So if you think that you're going to spin up a remote coaching business and do whatever you're doing today, if it's not, or what you were doing last week, if it wasn't remote coaching, that is unlikely, right? Because those things are so nuanced and they're so different. It's not likely that you're going to, let's call it, crush both of those worlds, right? Like pick one and stay there. All that being said is think about the sustainability of this thing and how much you want to put into this bucket. And if you're going all in, by all means, roll, right? But just think about the sustainability of it and what you want to do as a coach.
Jake does have a question, which is a good one. For personal trainers who are doing one-on-one sessions, should they shift to doing one-on-one Zoom sessions with those clients?
I think to be the most fair, Jake, you need to test it. So, I can say yes or no on that. My initial thought is if money wasn't an issue, I would transition them to not needing 60-minute sessions. However, if you're not going to be able to acquire new clients right now and you cut your income, by 60% because you're not doing hour-long sessions, that might be unsustainable for you. So depending on which bucket you sit, I'm not opposed to you trying it. I do, though, think that the experience will feel less good. And that's okay. So you have to set that expectation that it's going to be different. You're not going to have as much equipment to work with, et cetera, et cetera. And I think subtly, you want to potentially set that expectation to say, hey, we can do this thing a little bit differently for the next month or 2 months or whatever. Just let me know if that works better for you and we'll get you there. But I do think that it could be worth a test because you might capture 2 to 3 weeks of one-to-one revenue that you wouldn't have captured otherwise. And I'm saying this because the landscape is chaotic right now.
Thanks, Jim.
Just to add on that, and that's why I said in the beginning, a lot of this is to really to trust the relationship you have with those clients, right? Like if you're going to test this and I'm going to say, hey, Carl, let's try this Zoom. Like, would you be willing to try a Zoom call one-on-one session with me? And that we can, do this workout and see how this experience feels. He's like, oh yeah, man, for sure. Anything to support you, right? Like, cause he still wants to invest in the relationship as well, because that's the type of training. That's what I've been offering. I don't just write you programs and make you squat 1,000 times. Like, I care about you. I want to hear about your family. I want to hear about that beautifully manicured lawn that he has. That's AstroTurf, but it looks really good. Right. And so like, but that's where that relationship really comes into play. And to like, hey, they'll work with you. If it comes from like doing Zoom one-on-one calls to doing like writing workouts and doing connection, right? Like that, they're happy to do it because, man, if you guys being in the one-on-one game, like those clients, they love you, right? If you're doing a great job with those one-on-one clients, like they support you. I still talk to all of my one-on-one clients, and I haven't done one-on-one since 2014, right? But that's just because that it's such a good relationship, right? So yeah, know that they'll work with you if you've been communicating that well with them, and do test things out and figure out where are you going to be the most dynamic. Not all of you are going to be really dynamic on a Zoom call and being really animated to make a really cool experience like you do in person. So if that's not you, then you know right away that you're not going to provide the same experience, right? Then maybe that's just not the solution you go down. Or maybe you now have 3 kids running around the house and you can't be on a Zoom call all the time, right? So how do you structure your business to match what you have going on, right? And I think if you're upfront and you talk to your clients about what's going on and you go and like, hey, this is what's going on, let's find a way to make this work. I want to make sure it's valuable to you. That client's going to ride out whatever this looks like, right? And because chances are if they are able to afford personal training and they've been doing it, you've been building a great relationship with them, right? The relationship with you is worth more than the sets and reps inside the gym, right? And you're going to experience that right now.
Sam, thank you so much for that. And I really think that brings the conversation full circle back to where we started. The communication piece, guys, is going to be absolutely critical, whether it's in person, whether you're remote. You just have to do it a little bit differently, depending on where you're at. So Sam, James, Carl, Jim, guys, thank you so much. And Jim, look like you got one more point.
Sorry, I don't think we answered Jeff's question towards the end.
I missed that.
I just want to make sure that we hit it. So what about acquiring clients during this period of time? Jeff, 2 schools of thought on this. Number 1, you have to know that it's going to be a lot harder right now. So if somebody had a funnel that was creating 5 new clients per month, I'm saying that it's like 1 right now, maybe 2. Just because of the landscape right now. Also, it's because you now have a different service and nothing that you've talked to your clients about for the last 2 years is positioning that you're a great remote coach. Okay, so you have to remember it takes a little bit for our brains to wrap ourselves around wanting to do the service that's being positioned. That being said, this is where brute force hard work mixed with creativity can bring you in some clients. Okay, so we mentioned last week, you start from in to out when you're doing marketing right now, meaning You go to the family, friends, clients who are closest to you, and you start talking about referrals and getting other people in because you already have a relationship with them. Then you start to expand out. On the creative side, you're going to have to get creative in what you offer, the words you use to offer it, what price point you offer it. Now, obviously, if you're going to go a little bit lower price point or some offer, you have to make sure that that is connected to a short period of time, because you cannot do remote coaching for $50 a month. That's death. It's too much work. Okay. Actual remote coaching, you can't do it for that much. Okay. So if you're going to make an offer, I'm all for it. Right now, guys, remember, leads are really cheap right now online. So people will see your stuff because all they're doing is going through their social media feeds all day. So they will see it and they will get interested in what you have. So you can throw an offer out there that could bring back some clients at slightly lower dollar amounts, but you have to already have thought through how you're going to get them to pay you what you're worth in a short, meaning a month or two period of time.
Thanks for answering that, Jim. So guys, I have popped out info in the chat box. Do please feel free to reach out if you have any other questions along the way. There are a ton of people that are trying to go remote right now, but the guys on this call have been doing it really effectively for many, many years. So please reach out to them and make sure you're not guessing about the best way to move forward. And I will also tease that on Wednesday, the OPEX team is going to have a new guide coming out with some really tangible steps for you, some key considerations, and some questions to ask yourself if you are looking to start a remote coaching business. So please keep your eyes out from that. We'll be posting it on social and we'll be emailing it out to everyone as well. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you tomorrow, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.